G'day, Ed. Happy Monday. How you doing, mate?
Morning, Robbie. Living the dream. How are you doing?
Yeah, really good. Had a great weekend. Got a little bit of downtime. Enjoyed the cold weather here in Sydney, which was really nice. I love it when it's cold outside and the sky is clear and like the air temperature's cold, but it's not really cold, man. It's maybe like 15 degrees. That's freezing here in Sydney. I'm dying, man.
15 degrees. I don't. That's
Can you do the calculation?
No. I'm not even going to try.
It's well above freezing.
One of these days, I'll get a chart. Yeah,
it's 15, not a problem at all.
15 degrees.
Sure.
I mean, zero is freezing, right?
It is, yeah.
That's where water freezes. Okay.
Where's your freezing point? Yeah, let me do a calculation super quickly for you.
32 degrees.
Yeah, there it is. So 15 centigrade in Fahrenheit. What does that work out to be?
I don't think it's that easy.
No, it doesn't give it to me that quickly.
You got to get a whole chart out. I mean, the rest of the world has to catch up with us, man. You guys, you're throwing everything off.
What's with that annoying imperial scale anyway?
I know. Yeah, right. I mean, talking about, the one cousin no one wants. I mean,
Can you just bring your mic a little bit closer there for me, Ed?
Yeah, here we go again.
There we go. Now we can.
All right.
That's really good.
So if I get too loud, you got to tell me now because I'm not used to. Okay. All right.
So what did we get up to on the weekend, mate? Was it anything fun? Did you get some downtime yourself?
I actually did finally. I finally stepped away from my screen. I made myself step away from the screen. But there's a whole world out there, that for people to discover. So I'd encourage everyone to step away from your screen sometimes, especially you youngsters, where you'll walk around with your phone with your face buried in. Turn it off and look around.
I had the same experience, funny enough, on Saturday. I woke up early because I wake up early through the week anyway, so it's hard to sleep in. Sleep in was to 5:30, and I got out of bed and I'm like, now what? And I'm like, I'm not sitting at that computer. You're kidding me, aren't you? So I put my shoes on, I got dressed, and I went to the gym, and I had like a cracker of a workout. But I came home and I sat down at my desk here and I started to do a little bit of work, and I looked up and it was like 2:00 in the afternoon, and I'm like, really? Really? And I haven't been outside, and I'm like, and I charged my batteries for my drone because my drone makes me go outside, right? And I put the batteries on the charger here behind me and ready to go. And I looked over at the batteries and I pressed all the buttons on the top of them. They were all charged and I was ready to go. And I looked outside and it was dark, and I'm like, damn, the day just got away from me. Just one of those things that happens, right?
So those drones are coal powered?
Yes, they're coal powered batteries. Yeah, they're all coal powered batteries. You know how this goes, man. You know how this goes. This is what it is. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if this is your first time here at The Unspoken Truth, welcome. It's great to have you here. Ed and I are here live every day, Monday to Friday in America and Tuesday to Saturday here in Australia. And we talk about things that are happening in the media. We like to pull back the curtain and show you the unspoken truth behind what's really going on in the news. There's a lot of crazy stories out there. There's a plethora of stories out there, in fact, that we could choose from and look at it on a daily basis. But we try and stay in our lane and talk about the things that we know about. And we also like to highlight to you what you can do about these things. This is not just one big carry on and a bitch fest. What this is all about is helping you to understand what it is that you can do to better protect your family and help you in this uncertain time that we're all living through. So today on the show, we're going to be talking about the ever-growing crisis in corporate bankruptcies. And that's actually one of the maybe lagging indicators of the economy coming undone, because it takes a while for something like that to actually happen. But it's actually highlighting to us where we're going. And we all know that we're about to hit the world's biggest financial crisis and the banking collapse of not of all time, but of humanity. We're going to see the biggest banking collapse and the biggest shake-up in the banking industry ever in human history in the next couple of years. And we like to look at these leading indicators to see exactly when that's coming and what it's telling us. So Ed's going to take us through some of that. And I'm going to have a little bit of fun with everybody here at the end of the show. And I want all of the listeners and viewers to play along. We're going to play a little radio game about normalcy bias. And I'm going to show you how normalcy bias is actually completely destroying our way of life. It's going to be a fun show towards the end there. I want you to play along in the comments. Let us know if you're watching here live. Tell us where you're from, and if you've got anything to say, just go ahead and put some comments in there. And if you're watching the replay of this, make sure if you've got any questions, you put the word question in front of your comments and leave it down below, and someone will answer that. Ed or I will answer that, or the audience will answer that for you as well. Once again, if this is your first time here, don't forget we're over on Spotify, Telegram, Rumble, and Twitter. Over on the Telegram channel, I like to post a bunch of stuff that's R-rated content that cannot be shown here on this platform for a variety of different reasons. And if you can't join us on a daily basis here on YouTube for whatever reason, you can get us in your ears in your favorite podcasting app. It takes about an hour or so to pull through after the show's finished into Spotify, and then about another hour into Apple and all the other subsequent platforms as well. So don't forget to come on over and follow along on those platforms as well, because we're over there and we're dedicating a fair bit of time to getting this content out on a daily basis. Ed, we've got 138 videos on the channel, and it's week 3 of us doing this. There's been a lot going on. There's a lot of content on there, folks. I'd encourage you to explore the channel a little bit more as well. And there's a whole lot of content that I've done from about anywhere from the last 6 to 9 months on the channel there as well, that I've taken it from a different channel that I used to have, and I've re-uploaded it into this one because it's more appropriate for this one. So check out all of that content, and don't forget we've got a whole bunch of YouTube shorts there as well. Ed, I'm going to let you kick off the show and talk about the unseen crisis in corporate bankruptcies. I'm assuming this is coming from Zero Hedge. That's one of your favorite sources there. They've got some great financial information in there. Folks, head on over to zerohedge.com, isn't it, to check that out. I'll put the link in the description after the show there as well. It's one of the sources that we use for this show, and one of those things, one of those places that helps you stay ahead of the curve as it relates to the financial news. So check that out when you get a chance as well. Ed, why don't you take it away and tell us a little bit about what you got going on today, mate?
All right, let's get into it. Okay, so U.S. corporate bankruptcies are up over 200%. Let's talk about it. Okay, so remember when we had that long period of time when the Federal Reserve kept interest rates really, really low? Well, most corporations took advantage of that, and they added debt. I mean, they pretty much considered it free money, right? And they used that to expand and do all sorts of stuff. But they took on more debt. But then last year, the Federal Reserve started to raise rates. And not only did that affect their own borrowing costs, but it also affected all of the consumers that buy their products. Now, I've told you several times before that there's kind of a hierarchy here in companies going out of business, because what people do when times get tough is the first thing to do is they stop buying the luxury items. Okay, no more luxury cars, no more luxury watches, no more luxury vacations, etc. The next on your list are your discretionary items, like taking the vacation, going out to eat, buying a new set of towels. That's why Bed Bath & Beyond filed bankruptcy this year. I guess people figured, I don't need to buy a new set of towels. My existing towels work just fine. That's what washing machines are for. And the net effect of all of this is corporate bankruptcies are accelerating. So for the first quarter of 2023, corporate bankruptcies are up 216% over where they were this time last year. Okay, so there are 2 primary causes in the dramatic increase of corporate bankruptcies. The first one is the dramatic increase in their carrying costs on all the debt that they have on board, courtesy of dramatically higher interest rates. Number 2 is the dramatic contraction of consumer activity for the same reasons. They're having a hard time making their ends meet. Now, Jerome Powell said that he's determined to achieve that 2% inflation rate, which means he's going to have to continue raising rates quite a bit more if that is his real agenda. If he's being honest and he's being truthful and he's going to make an actual sincere effort to bring inflation under control, he's going to have to continue raising rates. Now, whether he's telling the truth or not, time will tell. But if they're going to get inflation under control, rates have to go quite a bit higher, which means this trend in corporate bankruptcies are going to continue. And what could end up being the financial cost of this? Because remember, when they file bankruptcies, they're not paying their debts anymore. They're not paying their debts back. They file for Chapter 11 and they write off those debts, and those debts will never be repaid. The impact of a recession and a credit crunch could be that $1 trillion worth of corporate debt ends up defaulting. So what is the net effect of all this on you? Well, if you work for corporate America, your job could be even more at risk. Now, this is not just a U.S. problem. This is actually a global issue. I'm just giving you the U.S. numbers. Now, you're not going to hear these statistics that I just told you in mainstream media. They're covering it up. Things are not rosy. Things are not good. You have to start taking steps to look after yourself. Reduce your exposure to your bank, buy some gold and silver, and establish streams of passive recurring income. So, Robbie, when was the last time you bought a new set of towels?
During COVID, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was really pissed when I bought the towels because they took like 12 weeks to get here. And I'm like, are you serious? I could have just went to the shop to buy them. And Susie's like, no, don't spend any more money on towels. I'm like, look, you're 100% right. There was one word that came to mind there when I saw that. And once again, well done, Ed. You have such a great way of bringing these complicated topics down to earth so normal people can understand exactly what they mean. The word that came to mind for me was the same as what happens in the banking sector, and it relates to the interest rates, right, is contagion. So if there's an extended period of time where businesses and brands have overextended themselves because of low interest rates, and then all of a sudden that is coming home to roost and the Fed are ratcheting up those interest rates, the contagion effect of that is these businesses cannot afford to do business and they just go away. It's just ridiculous.
Well, that's why I think most people don't really appreciate the effect that rising interest rates have on pretty much everything. And it's all going to, and you're going to be caught up in the net. It's unavoidable. And not only directly with the cost of your own personal debt going up, but the company you work for, the products you go out and buy. This could really, not just a contagion effect, but this kind of an unraveling effect. And it's like a vicious circle, and we're caught up into it. And we have not seen the full effect yet. This is going to get a lot worse. Now, this assumes that the Fed is going to, we're taking them at their word that they're going to continue to raise rates. Now, they might, lose their guts. I mean, these people are not exactly profiles in courage. Okay, so these guys, they could pivot and actually start lowering rates if they feel enough pressure from Wall Street, because they don't respect money. But then that's going to have the other effect. That's going to send us into hyperinflation. So we're kind of stuck. And we created this monster. Well, the Fed did, right? They created this monster. We are, the entire Western world, we are debt-based societies. And so, and in debt-based societies, you're at the mercy of interest rates. And, if you make the wrong bet, and don't think these executives in these boardrooms, these corporations are necessarily really bright people. Okay, they're so all that we can do right now for ourselves is we have to start taking measures to take care of ourselves, because no one else is going to take care of us. The government's not going to.
What do you see, Ed, in terms of, because I think there's a couple of unspoken truths hidden amongst all of that data that you pulled out, and I'm sure it took you longer than it did to record that video to actually research, right? It takes you half an hour to look at those sorts of things. So when you look at that data, did you see what they categorize as a corporate bankruptcy? Does that mean the company makes more than $10 million? Like what category does that fit into, or did you find that information? Or
no, that report I think were for companies above $1 billion in market cap.
Yeah, so they're large companies.
Right, yeah. Correct. Yeah, but I promise you that if they looked at the entire corporate industry, the mom and pops, that number would be dramatically higher.
And that's the unspoken truth right there, right? That's me leading the witness and leading you with that question, because the reality is, during COVID and those lockdowns, that was the deliberate destruction of small and medium business, because the transfer of wealth that we saw to large corporations was beyond anything that you could ever have possibly imagined in human history. And that was at the expense of all of the small businesses that are out there. Here in Australia, it still really hasn't recovered. I still walk around the local shops here in Cronulla and there's still empty shops everywhere. And, the banks have picked up and moved out of here because they recognize that retail banking like that is just not required anymore. So they're kind of everything from the local cafe that existed for half an hour in the scheme of things to the bank that have been there for 30 years. They've vacated the place. And I see a bunch of really strange businesses popping up in my local area as well. And they're businesses that didn't exist before. And if we move back to some sort of place where we have to have government intervention because of some other virus or some other problem, then all of those businesses are they're just a house of cards. They're going to collapse straight away.
Well, yeah, and especially with the debt load that they already have. Now, one of the reasons why we're going to see more consolidation among all companies in the U.S. is that you're going to see, and as times get tough and people start pinching the penny, they've got to make their money go further. They're going to start looking for the best possible deal they can get. So they're going to do much more comparison shopping. So if you have a Target store and a Walmart store within 10 miles of each other, they can say, all right, well, I can save 20 cents a gallon on milk by going over to this guy. And so the margins, so just by beating the other guy by a little bit, okay, they'll easily steal market share away from those other companies. So you're going to see the bigger companies like Walmart get bigger, and you're going to see the smaller companies get smaller. It's just that's just the way things work economically. And even if those price wars, where they're cutting prices in order to beat the other guy, it's going to make harder for companies to make money right there. So profits are going to be. That's another issue that they have. So yeah. So when
it has a snowballing effect, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Because once it's reduced here, then people are in a price war with each other. It's a race to the bottom, and then it just doesn't end well for anybody in that particular respect. It's a really interesting time because we see the joy of money printing since 2008. The economy died in 2008. It's just been on life support ever since, and we're still doing compressions on its chest right now as we speak here in 2023. It's just unbelievable what's happening. I still can't believe that this is still going on and there's been no other additional solution that's been put forward for us. But it looks like that inflation is something that is much worse than what you could possibly think about. Over the weekend, I was making a couple of videos, and some of it was related to inflation. And when I was looking for some slides and to take some screen grabs and stuff like that, you see inflation in different parts of the world up around 80 to 90%. And I'm thinking, imagine if inflation was 80 or 90% in America, then the interest rates wouldn't be 5 or 6%. They'd be like 30 and 40%. And in Argentina, you and I were laughing last week, they had to jack the interest rates to 97%, 97. Imagine if you took out a loan last week for your mortgage and then all of a sudden the interest rates went up to 97%. Like how does that even work in an economy? It's a crazy time.
Well, the way you actually, if you're going to fight inflation effectively, the way to do it is you have to get your interest rates above the actual rate of inflation.
And you have to completely destroy the population in the process.
That's right. That's what the effect is. This process of fighting inflation, it is by nature a very painful process to the average person, because what they're trying to do is make your life miserable, because they need to get you to stop spending money. They need, and wherever that pain point is, that's what they're moving toward. So they are purposely trying to make your lives more miserable. That is the process of fighting inflation. Until people stop buying stuff, start spending money, they're going to keep, turning the screws. It's going to get harder and harder and harder. So that's the process that we're going through right now. And if they're serious about achieving that 2% inflation rate target, they've got a lot further to go on the interest rate hikes. So things are going to get worse.
It has a huge follow-on effect in different areas of the economy. I can't remember if I was telling you on camera or off camera. A couple of weeks ago, I had some time with a property developer, and she's a pretty serious operator. She's got about $28 million in a pipeline. It's probably 6 or 7 developments underway all at the same time. And I was just chatting with her, and I asked her, what's the outlook in the Australian property market? What are you seeing? What's happening? And she said to me that she's never seen, in the dozen or so years that she's been doing it, she'd never seen so many properties up for sale with a development application already approved. And I said, well, why is that something different? She said, well, normally you would see a property for sale, right? And I'd be like, yeah. And she goes, but the DA is approved. So a developer has gone in there and said, wow, look what I could do with this place. Done all the paperwork, got all the plans drawn up, and handed it over to the council. The council gave it a tick in the box and then put it on the market, because you can sell it for more with the DA approved than you can just as the bare bones property, right? Because you don't have to go through that whole process and everything's done for you already. And I said to her, why aren't developers following all the way through? If they've got the properties and they're doing the DAs, why aren't they doing it? And she said, there's a lot of really negative sentiment in the industry here in Australia, in the construction industry, because developers are worried about people going, or builders going out of business because of inflation. They were her words. And I was like, well, why would inflation send a builder out of business? And she said, well, you calculate the costs of what you need based on the time that you're actually calculating it. But then if you fast forward like three months into the future, or 6 months into the future, or 9 months into the future, and everything's gone up by 5 or 6%, it completely kills their margins. Or if it doesn't kill their margins, or if it kills their margins, what happens is the only thing that they can do to solve that problem is to pull back on their wages. But the amount that it nails their margin on the products that they're buying versus their wages, they almost end up working for free. And in some cases, people are trying to do the right thing. They continue working, they continue finding their the products that they need to complete the building, but they're unable to do it and they go out of business. And there's a lot of builders going out of business because of those things. And the follow-on effect of all of that, there's another bankruptcy, right? That builder went out of business because of that one building, and he didn't miscalculate. What he couldn't factor in was inflation was running away at a point where it wasn't something that he or she could predict.
Yep. And shout out to Polly in the Netherlands. She says that they're expecting more bankruptcies in the Netherlands. So see, this is a global thing. By the way, I think it's really cool that we have someone from the Netherlands watching our show. So thank you for tuning in, Polly. If you're in other parts of the world, please let us know where you're watching, because I'd like to keep track of the far reach of our show. That'd be really great. But so this issue about people would drive, even in Minneapolis here, you drive around, you see buildings under construction, and you will see when times are really bad, buildings are going up. You wonder, well, why are they building buildings when the economy is crap? People have to understand that there's a lead time involved in making a building. Okay, you have to anticipate. You have to work with whatever the economic conditions are at the moment, and then project out and hope that you're right. Then you gotta qualify for the loan. Then you gotta hire the architect. You gotta break ground. It's a long process. Yeah, it's a long process. So by the time you get to the point where you put in that last light bulb inside of the building, you can have a completely different economy. So you can't just drive around and look at the number of buildings going up and use that as a clue about the health of the company. That's a lagging indicator. That's a real lagging indicator. That's old news.
Let me give you some new news from here in Australia that you might not have heard, because we haven't spoken for a couple of days. Is I popped into the car at some ungodly hour to go to the gym in the morning over the weekend. And as I pulled out of the driveway, I turned the radio was on, and who listens to the radio anymore anyway, but in my old car, I've still got a radio, there's no Bluetooth. And it said that cost of living is the number one problem here in Sydney. And that because what they were talking about was the Australian government wants to increase immigration by 1.5 million people, the city of Adelaide, in the next 5 years. And everyone's going, well, where are we going to put all these people? And forget about that for a second. How are we going to afford any of this? And then they started talking about the cost of inflation of groceries. So when you look at CPI, folks, CPI, Consumer Price Index, is a basket of goodies. And they manipulate the basket of goodies to get the numbers that they want, just like they changed the definition of things like the word recession. Which suddenly, this communist society that we live in, where they erase history and change the meaning of words and burn books. It's funny. But here in Sydney, inflation in Western Sydney for groceries was 70%, 70%. And people in Western Sydney on fixed incomes, so think about somebody who's a nurse who works at a hospital, or a police officer, or a fireman, or somebody that's on a fixed income that can't really do any more hours because that's a government job and I can't do any more hours. I've got no more capacity to swap my time for money. These people are the ones that are actually really feeling it the most. Yeah. And they were saying that some of the people in Western Sydney were unable to buy fruit and vegetables because it was too expensive. They're unable to buy meat every day. Some people were forced to actually eat only 2 meals a day, not 3 meals a day. And you hear all of these things and you're just listening to it going, come on, man, really bullshit. It's not that bad, is it? And then yesterday when I go to the shops and I buy dinner, I buy some prawns and a little bit of fish and some pasta and a pasta sauce and some vegetables and a packet of chocolate biscuits and some coffee or oil or something like that. Just regular things that you'd buy in groceries. 2 bags of groceries, 2 bags, and both bags of groceries only about half full each, because you can't fill them up any more than that anyway, $65. I'm like, really? Go to the servo, petrol prices in Australia are higher than petrol prices in America. And nobody ever talks about that because Australians just cop it on the chin and she'll be right, mate. That's just how it is. But the fuel prices here in Australia are way higher than they were before before the war in Ukraine started. And apparently that's the reason why petrol prices are so high, even though the price of oil is down actually a little bit below where it was when the war started. And I'm like, they're just gouging us. All of this is gouging. The government gets fuel excise there. It's just a tax grab for them. They keep the prices high. The GST that they get when you go to the supermarket, the tax that happens in there, all of this inflation and all of this pain is designed to take the heat out of the economy. And that's because of their mismanagement. And don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, that you're watching or listening to this, the people that actually cause this are the people the elected officials. They're the ones that printed all the money that caused this inflation. That's the only reason that we have inflation, is because you printed too much money.
Yeah, duh, right? Duh. I mean, you and I get, don't be impressed by the people in their fancy suits and the fancy titles. These people go to school to learn how to be stupid. They've got stupid 101, stupid 102, stupid 103, and they got advanced level, PhD level in stupidity. That's what you and I just last week we did a report on those buy now, pay later loans.
Yeah,
people are
buying groceries on that.
Right, they're using those to buy groceries and she said in that report that we talked about that a year ago, and that average a family of 4 took $380 a month to buy groceries, and now it's $1,000. Yeah, so don't tell me inflation is 8%.
There's a 300% increase.
Yep.
Yeah, unbelievable. So, tell me something. I was thinking about something as the weather's getting a bit colder here in Sydney. I rarely turn the air conditioner on. I think I turn the air conditioner on twice in summer because it's breezy here. It's hot, but it's not that bad. But in winter, I think I pull the heater out maybe for a week at most. Just put a jumper on, right, or put a jacket on. This is not that cold. And I was thinking about you in Minnesota, and it's freezing. You can't do that. You have to heat your house. You have to do all of those things. You have oil that you pay for. What's the price of energy for you heating your home in wintertime there in Minnesota? Has that increased?
Well, yeah, of course, yeah. Well, some houses do still have heating oil. Most houses these days are natural gas.
Gas.
Yeah. Went up. Now, not nearly as badly as Europe last year. I would love to complain, but I look at those poor people in Europe, and I can't complain compared to those people. And a shout out to Mark who joined us. Hey, Mark, always good to see you, man. Mark is one of our most loyal watchers, so I got to make sure I say hi to Mark. And Natalie, she told us she's in, Paulie told us she's in Amsterdam. I got a few Amsterdam stories I'll share with the crowd.
I bet you have.
I got to make sure that they're all adults though on this call. But once so I was a teenager. I was in Amsterdam. Won't get into the whole story. But one of my favorite memories was when I landed there. I got out of the train station. It had to be like 1 a.m, middle of the night, dead of winter. And guy said, "You need a place to stay?" I said, "Well, follow me." So, the last thing you're supposed to do, right, in traveling. So I followed, and they end up staying on a barge in the canal in Amsterdam, and one of the best experiences of my life. So, Paulie, do they still do that to people? Do barges still, have their uses there? Anyway, just
they will.
I had to put that in. I couldn't resist, huh? What?
Good memories, man. Good memories of that sort of stuff. Well, Ed, thanks for sharing a little bit about that corporate indicator. Do you think it's a leading or a lagging indicator, that bankruptcy stuff?
It's a lagging indicator. Yeah,
and do you think we're talking about large major corporations? How does that factor into a decision-making matrix for you? If you see those numbers going up, is that an indicator that the economy's...
No, the numbers are going to get worse because when you look at the reasons for the bankruptcies, because of rising interest rates primarily, that's the primary culprit in this, is a rising, which makes all of their debt servicing much more expensive. Well, if Jerome Powell is serious about fighting inflation seriously, he's going to have to continue raising rates, which means we're going to see more bankruptcies because more companies are not going to. So if they're holding on by their fingernails right now to keep up with their corporate debt, well, if they raise it more, it's going to become that much more difficult. You're going to see more going under. And now the process might be a little bit dragged out because first we'll resort to cost-cutting measures, right? Like laying people off and stuff like that. So they could delay.
That's been a big thing that's happened in big tech, isn't it? You know, thousands and thousands of people being laid off in that sense as well. So that's actually the first stage of it.
Yeah. So there are already stories of companies being laid off, and these numbers about unemployment, you cannot trust these numbers. These are government numbers. They don't factor in things like people who are now working 2 jobs when they used to work 1. They don't factor in things like that. So.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, it's great to hear that report. I need to give a little bit of thinking music in the background as we shift gears into the next part of the show and have a little bit of fun here. I was just thinking about something, how crazy the world has become in the last couple of years. And, you know, that's all around this thing called normalcy bias. And we hear all sorts of biases in this woke world that we live in, but this is actually something that really does affect us. So ChatGPT tells me that normalcy bias, also known as normality bias, is a congenitive bias that leads people to underestimate both the likelihood of a disaster and its potential severity. So I'm going to play with this with you in a sec, Ed. The bias causes individuals to dismiss the possibility of catastrophic events, often leading to inadequate preparedness and planning. Essentially, it's a mindset of, it won't happen to me, or things will always function the way that they usually do. But we've seen in the last couple of years that that's just not true. The bias tends to occur because our brains are wired to recognize patterns and maintain stability. So when we're faced with a potentially disastrous situation that we haven't experienced before, we might default to treating it as a non-threatening normal situation. The brain assumes that since the disaster hasn't happened before, it won't happen now. So to close it out, the normalcy bias can be a significant factor in an emergency. For example, it may result in people not evacuating before a hurricane because they believe it won't be as bad as it's predicted, or they believe that they've weathered similar situations before without any issues. So in severe cases, this bias can lead to unnecessary harm or even a loss of life due to the lack of adequate preparedness. So normalcy bias is something that we've all gone through in the last couple of years, and it has been something that's been on my mind. So I wanted to introduce a new segment today about normalcy bias. So here it is, Ed. I'm going to read you a list of things here, and the normalcy bias is you telling me if this is normal or it's not. So I want you to say, when I say these things to you, I want you to say normal, not. Only
normal,
2 words.
Normal for me?
Well, not just in the world. Is this normal or it's not? So I just want to see how you feel about these things. So it's going to be rapid fire. Ready?
Okay. Yep.
Dozens of missiles attack Kyiv each week in Ukraine.
Not normal.
War crimes happening every day on a battlefield in Europe.
Not normal.
The worst president in American history is the one you have right now.
Normal.
There's actually a socialist communist dictator to the border north of you.
Normal.
The socialist evil dictator wants to introduce central bank digital currencies.
Normal.
He wants to take away all their guns as well.
Normal.
The Greens Party, and specifically the Environment Minister here in Australia, is destroying Australia's economy by trying to, using a self-inflicted wound of the environment is going to kill us all.
Normal.
Nord Stream 2 was blown up.
Oh, that is, well, normal. Wait a minute. Is that the end of it? Nord Stream 2 was blown up. Well,
yeah, is that normal or not?
No, it's not normal. No.
The pandemic came from a lab.
Normal.
Fauci knew that it came from a lab and covered it up.
Normal.
Fauci knew that masks never helped anybody.
Normal.
Apparently, experimental medicine hurts people.
Normal.
Women are not allowed to compete with any other women. They must compete with men.
Say it again.
Women are not allowed to compete with other women. They must compete with men in sport.
Normal. Oh, wait. Okay, no. That's abnormal. I mean, okay. I'm having difficulty here about what's true and what's normal. I think I might have screwed. I'm going to flip all my questions. Okay, but I mean,
so I've deliberately done that, and I've deliberately done that too because it actually happened to myself. Right, as I was writing all of these things down, I'm saying these things, and you're saying normal. Your reaction to women not being able to compete with other women, they must compete with men. You just go, that's normal. Well, and what I'm trying to do is to highlight
what I mean to say. What I mean to say is true. No, it's not normal. It's true. So I guess I'm.
All right, I'll give you the third option: true, normal, or not. Here we go.
Okay.
Don't attack Crimea. It's a red line.
Normal.
It is. We attack Crimea every day.
That's normal and it's true.
If you touch that Kerch Bridge, attaching Crimea to Russia, that's a red line. Don't cross it.
Yep.
Normal? Not normal.
Oh, that's normal.
Chinese police stations in lots of cities around the world.
Normal.
Chinese spy balloons transiting the United States.
It's not normal, but it's true. Okay, this is where I'm okay. I guess I'm misunderstanding the game because.
No, you're not. You're not misunderstanding the game at all. I'm saying you're doing it in exactly the way that I knew you would, because I'm saying these things and you're saying that's normal. And what I'm doing is I'm highlighting the normalcy bias that we've been subjected to by the mainstream media. The mainstream media have led us to believe that it's normal for the Chinese nationals to have Chinese police stations to go and collar Chinese nationals that they don't like in the given country. That's not normal at all. That's true. That's true. That's going on, but it's definitely not normal.
Yes, correct. I mean, so I think all my questions, I got to flip them because everything that I said, I said normal. What I was meaning to say is it's true. That's what's happening, but they're not normal.
All right. Here's the next one then.
Okay.
Here's the next one then. So we said that there will be no tanks or fighter jets for Ukraine.
Normal.
It's true that we said that. Yeah. There won't be any tanks or fighter jets because if we do that, that's going to escalate the war.
Normal. Right.
No, it's not normal.
It's true, but it's not normal. Right.
And we're about to deliver M1 tanks. All the Leopard tanks are there. All the other French ones are there as well. And we're about to give them F-16s as well. Just don't attack Russian airspace.
So I guess the point is a lot of unnormal things are true. There's things that are not normal. Things that are not normal. There's an awful lot of things out there that are not normal, but they are true. They are going on.
So men are now allowed into women's change rooms.
Well, that is abnormal, and it is true. So okay. So it's abnormal. It's sick. It's perverted.
See how you feel a little bit of frustration as well.
Yeah.
I can't kind of express myself in words, right? So the idea of normalcy bias, right? The ChatGPT definition shows us that everything is okay because everything has always been okay. But nothing that I just read off to you on any of that list is okay.
Correct.
None of it's okay. That there's, war crimes in Ukraine each day. Normal. That's normal. I can show you, I could open up my Telegram right now, share my screen and show you 5 war crimes before the hour's out. I promise you, it is that bad where Russian troops or Ukrainian troops are engaging troops on the battlefield that are no longer a threat. So it's outside of the rules of engagement. So somebody is down and injured or you're attacking a medical party. You know, I see that all the time. The Ukrainians are notorious for it, man. They're using anti-tank guided missiles to shoot 5 or 6 Russians at a time with a missile. So there's 4 guys holding an injured person on a stretcher, running away, and an anti-tank guided missile goes boom and hits the medical party and kills them. You're not allowed to target medical parties. Imagine if they targeted a Red Cross van. Imagine how angry we would be. But the Ukrainians are doing that on a daily basis in Ukraine. And they're not just doing it with anti-tank guided missiles. They're doing it with drones, and they're dropping hand grenades on people like that are clearly injured and are clearly out of the fight. And they're trying to make sure that they're out of the fight permanently. And that's normal on a daily basis. That's happening on a daily, war crimes happening on a daily basis. It must be every second or third day. There's no way of me being able to verify when this actually happened, but I see video of Bakhmut at night time where the Russians are firing white phosphorus artillery rounds at them. And you're not allowed to use white phosphorus against troops in the open or against infrastructure. It's against the laws of armed conflict. But it's happening a couple of times a week at least, and now Bakhmut's no longer in the hands of the Ukrainians. It's happening a couple of times a week, and nobody says anything. Nobody's like kicking up a stink going, they're doing this, they're doing that. Nothing. It's ridiculous.
No,
and then, go ahead.
Yeah, Zelensky is not the hero that that the world thinks he is.
Well, let me just highlight that, because the Russian Prigozhin came out and said, yeah, we took Bakhmut, we're leaving by the 1st of June, and the Russians are going to take the position, the Russian armies will take the position, and I'm out of the fight, I'm out, because it cost him so many people. And Joe Biden came out to the G7 just a couple of days ago saying that there was 100,000 people that were killed over there. And it's like, how do you know that, mate? How on earth? You just can't string 2 sentences together, and then he's throwing some random number around that somebody had told him, and it's just not true. And then the Russians came out and said, we now own the ground, we own the city. And then the Ukrainians came out and said, it was a tactical victory for us. Hang on a minute, you just lost a city that had 80,000 people in it and all that infrastructure. The Russians completely destroyed it, and you're saying that that's a tactical victory? The spin that they put on this is just absolute garbage, man.
Well, Zelensky was asked that question at the G7 meeting and said, so what happened? Do you agree that you lost Bakhmut?
No, it was a tactical victory.
Yeah. His answer essentially was, well, we had not lost Bakhmut because it is still in our hearts.
It's also in the hearts of Yevgeny Prigozhin and Wagner.
Yeah, you lost it, man. Yeah, you lost Bakhmut.
Normalcy bias is something that, and I believe that normalcy bias is destroying our world. I believe that's what is the root cause of the problems that we face and the division that we see in our society, where you have a man dressed as a woman pretending to be something else, reading a book to toddlers, telling them that it's okay to try and be different.
That is not normal. I think I might have said it's true, normal, but what I meant to say is true. That's what's going on, but it's not normal. Yep. In fact, all of my normal answers flip it, because those were not normal. What I was really saying is, well, it's true. That is what is happening, but it's not normal. I guess the point is that in this world we have so many unnormal things that are going on, and this is I mean, you worry that things like that are going to become normalized. You worry that, and I think that is kind of the left playbook. Say, well, this is silly right now, but 20 years from now, if we keep up the drumbeat and we keep indoctrinating the right kids, and we keep getting that message, and we stick to our guns, eventually it is going to be normal. So, this is how we have ended up in bizarro world. We are in bizarro world right now.
The world is inverted. The world is upside down. Let me give you a couple of other ones because I think they're funny as hell. The FBI are not corrupt. True? Not true? Normal?
Well, they're not corrupt. Well, it's not true. They are corrupt.
What about FBI whistleblowers will be protected?
Untrue. Untrue.
Did you see at that hearing, the FBI whistleblower, one of the senators asked him, he said, if you had a colleague that that saw a problem, and would you encourage him to be a whistleblower like you? And he said no. Whatever you do, don't. He said, give it to me and I'll do it for you, or I'll connect you to the people that can do it. But whatever you do, don't do that, because the full weight of the FBI and the US government will come down on you and crush you and destroy you.
They'll destroy your life and your loved ones. And I hope somebody out there creates a GoFundMe page for this guy.
Apparently they got a bunch of donations, didn't they?
They're good. I mean, that would make sense.
They did, yeah. They got some donations from some Republicans and some Donald Trump supporters or something like that happened, because they asked them that right at the start of the hearing.
Good. I mean, I hope this guy ends up being rich out of this. I mean, he can't sue the government because they got all these protections, but I hope that he just, in effect, he should be a celebrity. Any freedom-loving person should be holding that man up as a hero and a celebrity.
So is this part of normalcy bias here that we got here, where apparently greenhouse gases and a 1% increase in the world's temperature is going to kill us all? Is that normal? Is that true, or is that not normal?
Well, it's not normal, and it's not true. Just for
hey, you guys, you're going to get us struck off YouTube.
I know.
Stop it.
Hey, you asked the question, man.
I was just seeing if you're going to self-censor yourself or not.
Well, you edit this out maybe if you want, but no, that's not true. It's bullshit. One day I'm gonna have to do a nice in-depth video on this, but it's the whole thing is a scam, and it's a very expensive scam, and our lives have been diminished because of that scam, because of that lie. All these climate change predictions, they're all based on computer models. And models are only as good as the data you put into it. So it's garbage in, garbage out. These are models.
There's a series of atmospheric scientists that have come out recently. I'll find one guy. He's a retired fella, and he talks about how they study the atmosphere and what the real scientists actually do. And you take a parcel of air that looks like this, but the parcel of air that's the same size next to it looks completely different. And that same parcel of air that you put 400 miles to the north is completely different to the same size parcel of air here. And there's just too many factors to consider to say all of these things are interconnected. So it's impossible to actually create a model, is the hypothesis of that. We can predict the weather, but you can only predict the weather and the temperature only to about 2 or 3 days in advance with any sort of accuracy. And that's because the further you go away from it, the mathematical models no longer work as you go away. They only work at a short space of time.
I've seen documentaries saying that we need more carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
We need more. We need more of it. Not less, but we need more of it.
I want a V8 car.
A
V12 car.
But I mean, spoiler alert, and that's what plants, that's fuel for the plants. Okay. So I saw a documentary last night I was watching, like you, I'm a manic guy. I look for all sorts of crazy stuff on YouTube. I came across this really good documentary, and ironically, it was pro, climate change and all that. And I watched it to see what these guys are saying. And these guys, and they highlighted the scientists who are trying to decrease carbon dioxide in the atmosphere by manipulating the amount of algae in the ocean. And so they came up with some kind of sodium, some kind of acid, whatever it is, compound. Good, yeah. And then they took it over just off the coast of Antarctica, and they flooded it. They so boiling, they're dumping this chemical into the water. Like, I don't know whether it's toxic or not, but when they're dumping this chemical into the water, with the idea is, well, if we can lower the amount of algae, then whatever. And then, as it turns out, it didn't work the way they thought it would. The algae ended up loving it. So there is more algae, and they created more carbon dioxide, and they made it worse. And
they were completely wrong, in other words.
Yeah, they're completely wrong. And so that, well, you know what? I think we just did it in the wrong part of the ocean. If we did it over there, it probably would have worked. It's because of the ecosystem in that part of the point being, the world is a complicated place, and the hubris of mankind, thinking that he will be able to manipulate the world, the global ecosystem to optimize the best. These guys they're egotistical and they're tyrants. But they come up with these experiments. One of these days, some idiot is going to come up with some experiment that's going to go way haywire, and then we're going to be in deep shit. So you know what? Leave nature alone. God did a pretty good job. Just leave it alone. Yeah.
There was
Okay.
a series of nuclear tests in the 1950s, late 1950s, where they estimated that I think it was Castle Bragg or something like that. You know, they had all these names of these nuclear tests that they did. I can't remember exactly which one it was, but they anticipated that it was going to be 5 kilotons or something like that, and it ends up being 13. It ends up being like 3 times bigger than what it was. Don't quote me there on the exact numbers, but it reminds me of exactly what you just saying. These scientists are so arrogant, and that they think that they can control atomic weapons, and they do something that nearly gets everybody killed in the process. And you know, the politicians that are behind all of this are so unbelievably arrogant that they think that they can control the world's temperature and the weather with a stroke of a pen.
Yep.
Because they're signing something into legislation about what you can and can't do. And the idiot that drives the climate here in Australia, Chris Bowen, he's responsible for the weather being 15 degrees today, and he'll be responsible for being 25 degrees in showers tomorrow. That's how arrogant he is. He came out last week with a post on Twitter dissing nuclear energy, saying how bad it was, how it increased problems, and saying all of these really, really negative things about it, and he had to take it down. And everybody in the industry here in Australia just said, this guy has absolutely no idea what he's talking about. But he's in charge of the policies. He's the one that actually says what goes, you know. All jokes aside, the guy is an absolute incompetent moron, and he's in charge. It's almost like deep state puts these incompetent fools in charge to make us supplicate to the stupidest people in society with the dumbest ideas that create the biggest self-inflicted wounds that we could possibly have. And when you look at people like that and you follow people like that and you listen to their ideology, you lose all self-respect. And when you lose all self-respect, they have complete and total absolute control of you. Because when you do something that a politician or a liar like that tells you to do, when they lie to you like that, and then you go, oh, no, he's a good guy, he's got good policies. No, just forgive him for that. No, I can't believe anything you say.
Listen, at least half of your public agrees to them.
They believe him, yeah.
We still live in democracy.
And that's the normalcy bias right there. The normalcy is that you have the single most incompetent immigration minister in history, and he's the person responsible for the Labor Party losing to the Liberal Party in the unlosable election last time around, because he would have been he was going to be the treasurer, and he came out during the election campaign and said, well, if you don't like our policy, just don't vote for us. And guess what? Nobody voted for you. That's what he came out and said. But for some strange reasons, Australians think that even though we're less than 1% of greenhouse gases, even though we have less than 1% of the world's pollution, and we sequester all of our pollution 4 times over with our landmass and our environment, that we still have to get to net zero by 2050. And we have to get to 80% of that by 2030 and eliminate all fossil fuels by then. And in the process, it's going to cost us trillions of dollars and destroy our economy, not reshape our economy. It's going to inflict pain at a scale that no one really understands. And we're just starting to get a glimpse of it now with every single broken election promise that they have. These people are just ridiculous. It's normal. Here's another one that should have been on the list. Politicians keep their promises from elections. Well, no, they don't. But we think that it's normal that a politician won't keep their promise. The normalcy bias we have, we go, it's all right, he's just a politician. He said that at the time, but we can't hold them accountable to that. What can we do? We just let it slide. It is what it is. Next election, let's vote for him again. He did a really good job. Actually, no, he didn't do anything that they said they were going to. They lied to you. They lied and lied and lied, and Deep State put these idiot people in charge, so you lose all self-respect when you follow everything that they say. It's so frustrating for me, man. That's the destruction of our society.
It should be frustrating and maddening to any freedom-loving, sovereign human being. Listen, I brought this up a couple times already, and the more I think it's going to become a mantra, another one of my mantras, because I think it really kind of cuts through a lot of the noise. And that personally, I think that at the core of all this, where these liberals and these socialists keep getting elected. Doesn't matter how bad a job they do, and it doesn't matter how much they ruin your life, they continue to be elected. It's because socialists and communists, they have a really good marketing campaign. You know, where everything's free, and everything's gonna be rosy. If you elect us, everything's gonna be just right. Now, in Central and South America, they've had nothing but socialists now for decades. And their lives are so miserable that they're fleeing by the millions into America to escape their misery. But they keep electing these people. They keep electing them.
It's like Yomi Park escaping North Korea to go to college in America to find out that they're teaching the same things. Yeah. The same thing's going to happen to these poor South American immigrants.
Yeah. So, I think people, these socialists, they have a really slick marketing campaign, which is ironic because they hate capitalism and they hate, but they happen to have the best marketing campaign, the slickest marketing campaign you can imagine. I mean, if you're going to have a society built on actual, prosperity, then if you want to be successful in life, you have to take a degree of responsibility. It takes some work, as it turns out. You got to put some work in. Socialists don't like the idea of having to put work into anything. They want everything to be provided for them. Everything should just come off of that, that magical rainbow cotton candy tree in their fairy garden, and consequences. And then they're surprised when it doesn't work. The surprise.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? It's a very
$31.5 trillion. And boy, how did that happen? Right? But didn't see that happening. Well, with all anyway. So without going into a rant, that's kind of my theory. I think if you trace everything, because there's always a kernel of, it always starts from somewhere, right? And
it does.
The more I think about it, is that ideology. What's the cause of that ideology? I mean, I think it really comes down to that really slick marketing campaign that socialists have.
They know psychology, right? If you tell a lie enough times, it becomes the truth.
Yeah.
And and if it just becomes believable to society that a mask is going to protect you, there was no studies to say that a mask was going to protect you. Yet there's plenty of studies post-pandemic to show that masks do not protect you, because the size of the droplets of whatever's coming out of your mouth and sneezing out of your nose is not going to be stopped by a cloth mask or even a surgical mask or even an N95 mask. None of those masks were proven to be effective. And there's plenty of real peer-reviewed studies post-pandemic to show that that was the case. And even, remember Fauci flip-flopped on that? Nah. Then he came out and he's wearing 3 masks and all that bullshit. Man, tell the lie enough times and it will be believed. And to your point, about these socialists and these communists, they're really good at manipulating human psychology, and they're really good at doing that at scale as well. And that's a scary thing, because that's happening all the time. And I want the people that are watching this to understand what normalcy bias is, because we hear about this woke unconscious bias bullshit in the workplace all the time. I'm unconsciously biased and that was a bit of a racist comment, or I shouldn't have said that, that was sexist or misogynist or some woke garbage like that, because everybody is so offended by everything that's going on. There's a guy here in Australia, his name's Isaac Butterfield. He's a comedian, and he's a stand-up comedian, right? He's a pretty popular guy. He's got a lot of really good stuff, and he's a real dinky-die Aussie sort of dude. And he went on the tour after COVID in 2022 around Australia. He went to these different places and people videoing him, and he cut some shorts out and he put some video on TikTok. And somebody was so offended by one of his jokes, they took him to the Human Rights Commission here in Australia. And he had to front the Human Rights Commission here in Australia, and he didn't go, of course. The reason he didn't go is because he had a baby that was due 2 days before that date. He said, I'm not going, I'm not doing that. And he wasn't going to go anyway. And so now they have 28 days to appeal the decision or some garbage like that. But somebody was so offended on TikTok by his joke that they took him to the Human Rights Commission. And the people at the Human Rights Commission, it's not like a company or a group of people or, a petition of 1,000 people that said, hey, you shouldn't have said that, that's really bad. It was one single person. That's how ridiculous this society is, but that's how our society has become, because communists and socialists don't like comedians, because everything's up for grabs as a comedian. You can make a joke about anything, absolutely anything that you want. That's the idea of free speech. You can make fun of anything. You can be racist, sexual, misogynist, whatever you want to be. It is a joke. And if you're offended by that joke, don't watch it. Don't listen to it. Switch it off. But I'm not allowed to show you here on YouTube the war crimes that are going on in Ukraine. I'm not allowed to show you what's actually happening when an anti-tank guided missile hits a medical party. I'm not allowed to show you pictures of people blown to pieces, but I'm allowed to actually put comedy on there that triggers people to go to a human right. Are you kidding me? And this is normal. This is the normalcy bias we have.
You can put videos of adult men dressed in drag giving twerking dances to kindergartens. You can show that.
Yeah. You can show that sexualized content, but I can't show you what's really going on in the war. And I can't, and I'm not allowed to talk about the corruption, and I'm not allowed to talk about the lies. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to let you know that today's show is brought to you by you, and I've got something I want to share with you. In this crazy, uncertain world, we all need a way to protect and insulate ourselves from the outside forces that we simply cannot control. I'm a news junkie, and after a lifetime of constantly immersing myself in the darkness and the despair that engulfs the world, the path to shield myself and my family has become crystal clear. I want to invite you to come and join me in the Unspoken Truth community, where I'll show you how I protect my family from this crazy world. You'll get access to 3 masterclasses worth over $1,000, as well as our live events, training, and community of truthers just like you. Come on over to the unspokentruth.com.au and join us for just 50 cents a day. What are you waiting for? Get started now at the unspokentruth.com.au. Well, Ed, it's finally here, the unspokentruth.com.au. I'm excited
We've been working on this for like 14 years. How long have we been?
Yeah, it feels like it. all jokes aside, it feels like the culmination of that actually is, I've had a couple of communities over the years. I've done different things. I've helped other people launch different communities as well. But this one feels like home to me. And it feels like something that I'm able to maintain over a long period of time. I was saying to Susie yesterday, I kind of finished work and I packed up everything I was doing here. And I said to her, I really love this workstation. It feels really good. I can move the computer to the side here if I want, and it opens up the feel of the room. And I've got like a news desk, got my teleprompter, I got all the camera, the equipment, and all of those things. And it's just one of those things that I feel like I could just do forever. And the reason for that is because I'm doing what I would be doing otherwise, if that makes sense. Like my job is to talk about these things and create content around the content that we do. And I was doing that anyway. So wouldn't it make sense to incorporate that into your life? They say, you got to find something that you're passionate about and do that, and you'll never work a day in your life and all that garbage, right? And I listen to that and I think, what a load of rubbish. But then I think that's actually what I do. I really love what I do. I love creating content. I love having these conversations. I've got a series of interviews lined up for us in the next couple of days. I've got an interview with a mate of mine, Alexander, who lives in Kharkiv, and he'll be on the show probably, I think maybe today. He said midday Ukraine time. I've got to figure out the time zones and stuff like that, so it's going to be the middle of the night for me, but that's all right. I'll get up and do that interview and find out what's going on the front line. And I've got a series of interviews like that coming here in the Unspoken Truth, and having the community there and the other people and being able to share all of that, that's an exciting proposition for me. So, and having you part of it on the journey, Ed, I couldn't think of anybody else I'd rather be doing it with, mate.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I feel the same way. And I promise you that what Susie heard when you're talking about your workstation, she heard, "Don't touch my stuff."
Don't worry about that on the desk.
I have everything exactly where I want it, and I know where everything is. So don't.
This is true. There's some unspoken truth right there.
But listen, no, but on a serious note, no, I'm really excited about this community that you're forming. And if people enjoy the kind of content that we cover here on the channel, I really hope people decide to join the community because, look, I don't have any unrealistic, expectations that we're going to have an army of 20 million people, but I'd like to have 500,000 people in the community, where we're really people of like mind who appreciate the truth, even if they don't like hearing the truth, but they appreciate being exposed to it, and they like the people that are involved, and if they can learn little tricks along the way for improving their lives, to little ways of securing their own personal sovereignty and finding ways to grow as a human being in many different aspects. We're not going to zero in just on finances. We're going to zero in on many different aspects of making your life better. We hope that you guys decide to join the community, because I think it's going to be an awful lot of fun. It's worth the price of membership. God, I mean, kind of it's silly. Almost, why even bring it up? Almost, it's so small. And I've argued. By the way, I've argued with Rob about this. He won, so you can thank him for the low price.
I think this is the future of social media, right? When you think about the way that you behave on social media, you kind of look at your Instagram or your Snapchat or whatever, and you're scrolling mindlessly through those things. But without realizing, that gives you a dopamine hit that keeps you locked into the matrix, and it keeps you encapsulated into that, which is actually a really dangerous thing, right? And instead of looking at your Instagram, mindlessly scrolling at men with six packs and women with boobs and butts, that's kind of okay for 10 minutes or whatever. Why don't you come on over to the Unspoken Truth community and be in a place where other people are doing the same things as you? It'll take a little bit of time to get some momentum. There's a lot of content in there already. And as we get moving and get going and get a bit of momentum ourselves, what's going to happen is we're going to create some accountability groups. We're going to do some group training. We're going to come together and we're going to go on a journey together. And that's the thing that I'm most excited about. I've done that a fair bit in the past with a lot of online accountability and a lot of online training, and I've seen some incredible transformations for people, and I know that we can do the same thing here. And to your point, Ed, it's not just about news or finance or the war or anything like that. Those things are topics that are top of mind because you and I are actually really well versed in those topics, but it's a series of other things that we'll be doing. And I've got a bunch of other people that I'm going to bring into the community as well that are experts on various different topics, and they're going to share their expertise and have a bit of fun with us and run some live events and some live content as well. So lots of exclusive stuff in there that you can't find on the YouTube channel or anywhere else. There must be about 15 videos in there from some lives that I've done with a whole bunch of training that's in there as well. So if you haven't already had a look, just head on over to the unspokentruth.com.au. And if you're not following along on your favorite podcasting app, just head on over to Spotify or to Apple and search for the Unspoken Truth, and you can find us there. And make sure you pop on over to the Telegram channel and check it out as well, because there's lots of great content there. And all the links, of course, are right there in the description. Ed, have you got any closing remarks before we finish off the show today, mate?
Nope.
That was it? All right. Watch out for those corporate bankruptcies. Watch out for those corporate bankruptcies. That's your indicator.
Thank you to everyone who watched during the live stream. I hope you make it a habit, and tell your friends. Please forward it. Let's get the word out, and let's grow this live event Monday through Friday at the same bat time, same bat channel.
There it is, baby. All right, Ed. We'll see you tomorrow. It's bye for now, mate.
See you, Bobby.